dreams come true. And I wonder if you know what it means, what it means. And I wonder if you know what it
God's gift of being Angela's dad. And she's a gift to me, and she told me about this class and what she does, and I've always been very proud of her. She's always, she's the type of person that asks us questions that you guys have been okay to ask. You know, if they're blunt and they're raw, ask them. I'll just give you a little bit of background because it's a question and answer type class. So I'm a recovering addict. I'm a heroin addict. The last time I went to prison, I did 10 years. And I'm going to start at the beginning. I usually don't, because when I go and share stuff, it's usually in prisons. I work in the prison system. I work for the Department of Corrections. Same place I sat in when others used to come in here and try to give us some hope and a little bit of faith that things could be different. But my career as a criminal, and a lot of the words don't really apply. You know, that I was watching a video that Angela had me look at, and at one time, when kids were considered just bad kids, you know, nobody was to blame except the individual, right? And we find out now that our system isn't all that. It might be one of the greatest systems in the world, but when people are falling through the cracks and people are sitting in a cell instead of a classroom like this, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. And I don't consider myself a victim anymore. You know, I've been able to recover a lot of things that got lost. You know, like coming to a class. I'm coming here to get educated. I don't know anything. You know, I can just tell you about the experiences that I've had. You know, going to juvenile hall. You know, and it's not to blame anybody, because in my own personal recovery, I found out this: what if it's nobody's fault? What if Ernesto has to take responsibility for Ernesto and that's it? Because I'm always searching to see if there's room for more education for this person. Like they said, you guys are seniors. I'm a senior. But and life gives us that, you know, that I think, you know, and I'm just speaking for me. I don't speak in a broad sense. You know, I know what recovery has done for me. It's been able for me to be those things that I always wanted to be. I've always wanted to be a dad. Be a good, you know, have healthy relationships with people. I want to put my hand down in the shit and pull out people like somebody did for me, you know. And hopefully you're those people. You don't have to go to prison to help a prisoner. You don't have to be gone to juvenile hall to help a young lady or a young man in the juvenile system. Because we are the ones that, if we're educated, well, let's utilize that education, right? I mean, so I know something. It's like me knowing CPR and you're on the ground flopping around and I don't do anything about it. It's my responsibility. You know, why get educated if you're not going to use this education outside of these doors? So, you know, basically that's what I do. You know, I came from that way of life, you know, and I'm sure you've seen us, you know, the ones that don't go to school, you know. Because the teacher is talking about, well, Ernesto, I think you'd make a good upholsterer someday. Maybe a good auto and body fender man. And I always wanted to raise my hand way in the back and say, you know what, I want to know about my history. I want to know where I come from. I want to know where my grandfather, you know, because society has labels for everybody. And I'm not that. I thought I was, because I believed what society told me. You know, and again, it's not to blame anybody. You know, maybe I could have took a different path, but this is what I did. So I got educated. You know where I learned how to read and write? San Quentin prison. You know, I paid it off all those years in the classroom. You know, I was the class clown in the back. See, if I could take the focus off me and make you look bad, nobody would ask me, do you know how to read and write? Nobody asked me that. I went to school up there, and there was this man that used to come in and on a voluntary basis, like he was a teacher. They say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. This man was the executive CEO of Texaco Corporation. And he would bring me and sit me down and give me individual attention. He goes, there's nothing wrong with you. And he taught me how to read and write. You know, I carried the books underneath my shirt because I didn't want the fellas to see me. Because that's the way we live. I lived off of what you thought of me. And that's how we go through it. You ever go through the campus and there's days you don't feel very comfortable? Feel like we don't fit? Somebody said that we didn't. And the reason I'm here today is because you are the hope. You might not be the future like George Carlin says, but you are the hope that you, whatever it is that you learn, and it's going to be your experience. You're not going to take my experience with you anywhere. I did not get into recovery because another guy got clean and sober. I did not want to go back to prison because whatever reason I can come up with. I was sick and tired of living that way. You know, there's this thing that people use real readily, and it's called anger, right? But where does that come from? An example. You ever been in a quiet spot, maybe reading, doing your homework, and somebody slams the door? What is the first reaction that you have? Somebody raise their hand. Tell me.
Get upset? That's my first reaction. I get annoyed and get upset.
Eventually,
Take
yes.
my focus off the reading.
Yeah, eventually. But what's the first emotion?
Surprise?
Anger is not an emotion.
Right.
What was that?
You get scared.
Bingo. And if you practice anger long enough and fear, it turns into anger. You ever judge the world? Anybody in here ever judge the world? How bad the system is? You don't do shit about it? That's fear. Anger is just fear turned inside out. That's all it is. You teach an animal, you kick it every day. It has anger for humans. So, the system, like again, that we build, like, without blaming, is that we have choices. I believe that we have choices as human beings. That's your experience, self-experience. You're going to experience things, and that's what why I'm here today, just to give you a little bit of experience, a little bit of hope. Tell you a little bit about my story. Is that that's where I come from. I come from, everything for me was fear-based. How do you raise your hand in a classroom in the 5th, 6th grade, man, when you're already supposed to know these things, how to read, how to write? When they would call me up here, I'd run out of the classroom. They'd go, okay, it's your turn to read. Oh, man, So I replaced it with negative behavior. And then growing up, they told that you're a bad kid, and nobody ever asked you if you're able to do these things that most people can do in the drop of a hat. It's taken me, I was 37 years old when I came into the process of recovery. And I'm not just recovering from drugs and alcohol, that's just a symptom. My environment is my downfall. So the hope is that when in the old days when we blew out of the high schools, and when we walked down Whittier Boulevard with 250,000 people, was to change the system. Half these scars I got are from Sheriff's nightclub, what do you call them, nightstands. Because they didn't want us to rock the boat. They don't want you to rock the boat. That's why they take all that money away. Just hopefully a couple of you guys will make it and you'll come and work for the Department of Corrections in a gun tower. Hopefully. See, they want to, it's control. The old, what do you call them? The old boys, they don't want to change the system. Everybody's afraid. The Department of Corrections is cutting all the, Arnold is cutting all the funding to educate the guys that are in prison, educate them in prison while they're there so that when they come out, they can live and never have to go back again. There was 28 SAP programs, they're called substance abuse programs. That's what I do. I go in there and let the guys know that there's a way out of this thing. I don't have to be an example, but I tell them, look, when you get out, instead of going home back to the neighborhood, go into a program and continue your education as far as how to live out here in society clean and sober and criminal activity free. That's my job.